Could you pull up the video of the Donald on Air Force One saying something that surprised the hell out of me? This was from 2 or 3 days ago.
Yeah.
Coming into Gaza, when you spoke to Prime Minister Netanyahu the other day, did that come up at all about access to humanitarian aid going into Israel?
No, Gaza came up, and I said, gotta be good to Gaza. Those people are suffering. We got to be good to Gaza. We're going to take care of that. There's a very big need for medicine, food and medicine, and we're taking care of it.
In terms of like opening up more access points, or
very hard.
Pushing the Israelis?
We are.
To open up more access
very
points?
Hard to get food and medicine into Gaza.
How did the Prime Minister respond to that?
Well, felt well about it.
Okay. I'm not sure where to begin with this. So first of all, Donald looked tired and chastened. That was my impression of his body language, his facial expression. It's not hard to imagine why he might be feeling that way right now. Everything that he's done has either gone nowhere or turned into a disaster. Certainly nothing he could characterize as a win, at least in the international arena, and as far as I can tell, domestically either. I mean, it's just a complete, Donald Trump reminds me of that character from that horror movie. Remember Chucky, that doll, the knife?
Yeah.
Evil doll. Every time I see Donald Trump, I think of Chucky. But this is the first time I saw Donald, and he actually looked almost like a normal human being. But I don't think that one, interlude like this can erase the decades of depravity that we've seen from the Donald. I still don't think he gives a damn about the Palestinian people or anybody else other than himself and his inner circle of people, his family and so forth, Donald Jr. and the rest of those creeps. I just want to say, so the question is why? Why Rami and notice he didn't say anything about the wonderful beachfront property in Gaza. He didn't say anything about moving people out. He didn't mention the word Hamas. What's going on, Rami?
Dimitri, just the timing of this specific message is for me quite absurd, because there's this little article here where the United States are they're removing the legal immunity for UNRWA, although it technically should, since it's an organ of the United Nations. So while he is saying that aid should be entering Gaza, I have trouble putting that into context when technically he's putting in lawsuits against UNRWA with the hopes of most likely to bankrupt it financially. And if it does financially go bankrupt, then in that case, how do we actually get aid into Gaza, considering UNRWA is the largest distributor of aid in the Gaza Strip right now? So in my sense, it could be a way for him to remove his, or to kind of deflect any form of responsibility with the starvation happening in Gaza right now, and to say that the United States is doing everything it can. I need to demonstrate that it's doing whatever it can to not starve Gaza. But I don't truly think he's compassionate with the people in Gaza and truly wanting to change the situation. Because if he really, really wanted, I think the United States could force Netanyahu to let aid enter Gaza. I mean, it's very simple. We have the Rafah crossing. There are thousands of trucks lined up that could enter at any moment. It's we're not trying to. I don't think it's quite feasible what needs to happen. It's solely Israel that is stopping it from happening. So I don't know exactly what this statement is supposed to mean, since if Trump really wanted to change course, then he has the means to do it.
Yeah, I think it's important. I really can't. I can't say with any confidence exactly what that was all about. It all I can say is I haven't seen or heard Donald Trump talk about the Palestinians in Gaza in that way since he took office. And I think it is important, if we're going to try to understand, try to get a sense of what all of this means, if anything, to look at the larger context. I was actually on Jamal Thomas's podcast this afternoon. Jamal has a great podcast. He's in Washington, D.C. And we were talking about this statement to the press. And, there's a lot of stuff going on right now in the genocidal entity that all the signs are that it's hurtling towards collapse. And I'm just going to rhyme them off in no particular order. Since Thursday of last week, the Israeli military reported that 4 soldiers were killed in Gaza, including a platoon commander, and 7 were wounded, including several critically who apparently had to go amputations of their legs. There are reports out of Israel that over 100,000 reservists are refusing to show up for service. There was a poll in the United States just came out, showed that 53% of Americans have a negative view of Israel, a majority. And I believe it was almost a majority of young Republicans now have a negative view of Israel. Just about the only people who still have a positive view of Israel, majority, is old Republicans. That's it. And the number who overall, in the overall U.S. population, have a positive view of Israel is much less than 53%. It's not 47, it's way below 47%. There's a poll came out of Israel that 60% of Israelis believe that a civil war is a real danger. The former Prime Minister of Israel, Yair Lapid, said that he fears that we will soon see political assassinations in Israel, as he put it, Jew killing Jew. By the way, that's not new to Israel. Of course, a Jewish person killed Yitzhak Rabin. And during the last 18 months, the Israeli military has been slaughtering its own captives in Gaza and continues to apparently try to do that. But still, the fact that Yair Lapid would say this, Ehud Olmert, former prime minister, expressed similar sentiments. Of course, and we've talked about it many times on Reason to Resist, the economic damage, severe economic damage that Israel is suffering. All of the scandals involving Netanyahu and the firing of the head of the Shin Bet, Ronan Bar, then the attorney general coming to his aid, and she then got axed by Netanyahu. This is a country that is, by all indications, on the verge of collapse. It reminds me very much of a lot of time nowadays. I think about the words of the late Syed Hassan Nasrallah, who years ago described Israel as a spider's web, as weak as a spider's web. And I go back to something that I wrote, in October and November, a 2-part article I wrote in October and November of 2023, at the very outset of this genocide. My article, I've talked about it a few times on Reason to Resist, and it was titled, America's Unsinkable Aircraft Carrier is Sinking. And I believe more than ever what I posited in that article, which is that Israel is on the verge of strategic defeat, the likes of which will change it forever, and its position of dominance will evaporate. And I know that seems counterintuitive. It's very hard to believe that because we see it killing so many people with total impunity, not just in Gaza, not just in the West Bank, but it's doing so in Lebanon. It just struck again a residential area of Beirut with a massive airstrike. It was in the last 24 to 48 hours. It continues to bomb Syria mercilessly. For the benefit of the genocidal entity, the Trump administration is massacring civilians in Yemen and virtually bragging about it. And now they're threatening war against Iran. So when you see all of this, and you see it being done with impunity for so long, it's hard to believe that they're losing. But I think you have to look at the overall trends, the trajectory of this, and where this all leads. And I think that Israel has, in fact, already suffered a strategic defeat. That doesn't mean it can't kill people. It can, and it may continue to do so and be able to do so for some time with horrifying impacts on the civilian population of the region. But I just don't see how this genocidal entity emerges from this as a normal functioning state, much longer.
Dimitri, we need to see Israel as well as being a tentacle of a satellite of the United States, and the United States itself. We see it with this trade war that it started against the entire world, and most notably China, is doing it out of its own survival. if the United States is struggling, as it has been struggling in Taiwan, where China is showing military superiority over there, although it's not shooting any bullets, the American military superiority has been shattered. Then we look at what's happening in Ukraine, where America is trying to pull the plug, knowing that it cannot sustain this war much longer. Mm-hmm. The U.S. economy is collapsing. China is producing much more, is basically producing much more patents every day, substantially more than the United States. So it's by design, Israel, if it needs to guarantee its own survival beyond the United States, it will need to change the reality in the region. That's why we see it continuously bombing Beirut. I think today they bombed Yahia as well. We're seeing the United States, Israel trying to drag the United States into war in Yemen and in Iran. It's because Israel is trying to guarantee its own survival, knowing that there are many threats to its existence. It's shown that it cannot be placed in a prolonged war in Gaza alone, especially where it needs to defend the north of Palestine, right? Due to it's still monitoring whether Hezbollah could resume its military activities. Israel has been stuck in Jenin in the West Bank, and then it's trying to protect the south of Palestine due to the Houthis, the Ansar Allah solidarity with Palestine. So we know where are the fracture points of Israel. It does not have the manpower to sustain these wars. It's relying on financial backing by the United States, which has shown to not be reliable considering it's pulling the plug on Ukraine. It's a question of time before it will not be labeled anymore to keep supporting Israel financially. So that's the way that I see it. I do think that we're heading towards it's going to be painful, and Israel will probably want to take people down with it. But I cannot imagine Israel existing in the way it is right now much longer.
Yeah, I think you make the single most important point, Rami, which is that when a tiny little pipsqueak of a state, its population is less than the population of Istanbul, small territory, its reservists are refusing to serve en masse and so forth, when it's dependent for its very existence on a superpower, and that superpower is in rapid terminal decline, it's just a matter of time before the proxy goes down with it. And that is the number one reason why I think the genocidal entity is doomed.
And also, there's also the demographic landscape of so-called Israel, right? So there are truly, this is not to say that the demographic threat, or what they call a demographic threat, is going to be it's just a collective of challenges that Israel is trying to face, all coming all at once. And it's basically trying to, it's going to be very hard for it to get out of the situation.
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, you reminded me when you mentioned Yemen, tomorrow we're going to be interviewing the spokesperson of Ansar Allah in Yemen, Mohammed al-Muqtaiti. That will not be live. That will be recorded, and we're going to probably publish it on Wednesday. He'll be coming to us from Yemen. He does not speak English, so we're going to have our comrade Hadi Hotait, Lebanese journalist we've interviewed before, part of the conversation, and he'll be translating. But fascinating. It will be fascinating to hear directly from him what is happening in the country now. So before we go to Q&A, there are two other issues we want to discuss. Rami, can you pull up the article about the explosion in Iran?
Yes.
That's right. Bad Wolf, Max Blumenthal did interview. That's how I actually learned of Mohammed al-Muqtaiti and managed to contact him through a friend in Yemen.
To zoom in a bit.
There has been a massive explosion in a major Iranian port, which has killed 45 and over 1,000 injured. Over 1,000 of the injured have been discharged from hospital, while 138 others remain hospitalized. The Iranian authorities have launched an investigation. There are reports that what exploded, I mean, I've seen one or two reports to this effect that there's no way to verify whether any of this is true, that it was a special type of fuel for Iran's ballistic missiles, which had been delivered to the port from China. Again, this could be complete nonsense. I have no way of knowing whether that is an accurate report. And for the time being, I've seen no reports that the Iranian authorities are blaming the United States or Israel. But folks, I can't believe that the timing of this is coincidental. They are currently locked in negotiations with the Iranian authorities. The Americans are, and the latest reports about that are that the Trump administration. Sorry, so my phone is going off. The Trump administration is saying conflicting things about what they want from these negotiations. Sometimes they say they want to limit the degree to which Iran can enrich uranium. And as we covered recently on Reason to Resist, there are numerous countries that enrich uranium, and there are perfectly legitimate, peaceful reasons to do that. You need to engage in some level of enrichment. In fact, normally or oftentimes above the level that the Obama-era nuclear deal capped enrichment just to operate a commercial nuclear facility and provide nuclear energy to your people. I think you have to enrich to about 5% in many cases, and the cap under the Obama-era deal was 3.67%. So sometimes the Trump administration says you can't do any enrichment, and they may or may not be willing to let the Iranians get enriched uranium from an outside source like the Russian Federation. But sometimes they say, "Oh, we have to lower the level of enrichment they can do." And then there are times you hear people saying they can't have any nuclear program at all, and they've ruled out completely getting rid of their peaceful nuclear program. They've ruled out even giving up the capacity to enrich uranium themselves. So it's unclear whether or not, the Iranian, that Israel would be content with the deal. It's unclear whether the Trump administration would be content with anything that the Iranians would be prepared to do. And they're certainly not going to give up their ballistic conventional missiles. And there was a report in Reuters 2 days ago which said that that's what the Iranians regard as the biggest sticking point of all, that the Americans want them to get rid of their conventional ballistic missiles, which is the best defense they have from attack in the absence of a nuclear weapon. And of course, all of this happening against the backdrop of the U.S. intelligence agency's 2025 threat assessment, which said that, in their opinion, Iran is not trying to develop a nuclear weapon. And then yesterday, Netanyahu comes out and he says, not only should Iran not be permitted to do any enrichment, but they need to dismantle the nuclear program altogether. And he keeps referring to what happened to Libya, thinking, I can't imagine that Netanyahu thinks referring to Libya is going to make the Iranians feel warm and fuzzy all over, because what Libya did was it gave up its nuclear program as Iran is demanding, or as Israel is demanding of Iran. And then they destroyed Libya anyways and sodomized its leader, Muammar Gaddafi, to death. Television. This is, the idea that telling the Iranians they have to go down the path that the Libyans went down is not going to lead to any kind of a negotiated resolution. And I can't believe that Netanyahu doesn't know this. He doesn't want a negotiated resolution. He wants war, and he wants the United States to do the heavy lifting in that war. So this brings us to the explosion. What do you do if you are fearful that the Iranians and the Americans might do some kind of a deal that looks like the Obama-era nuclear deal? You provoke Iran. But you do it in a way that allows you to engage in plausible deniability so that you don't aggravate your American sponsors. Or another alternative is that the Americans are actually in on this themselves and they're playing a duplicitous game. They're pretending for purposes of public consumption, because they know most Americans don't want any kind of a war with Iran, to be engaged in negotiations, but they themselves, in cahoots with the Israelis, are trying to provoke Iran. At the end of the day, I don't know what happened here, but man, I can't believe this is coincidental. I couldn't believe that the death of the Iranian president, Raisi, was coincidental, even though Iran never accused Israel or the United States of being behind his death, I find it very difficult to believe that they didn't have something to do with it. Can't prove it, but the timing of it stinks to high heaven. So again, I remain of the view that we are, when you add all of it up, in a very, very dangerous position here. I don't know that these lunatics are going to be able to restrain themselves and not launch a war against Iran. Rami, what's your sense of all of this, and what do you make of this explosion?
There's this article in the People's Dispatch, but it was also reported, I think, by AP, that Iran accuses Israel of trying to sabotage the ongoing nuclear talks with the United States. This was today. The explosion, I believe, was either yesterday or before yesterday. So, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised, of course, if this was committed, a sabotage attack or a direct attack by Israel. But I also think that the United States are treading a very difficult line. Iran has a partnership, an economic partnership with China that is supposed to last 50 years. And I believe that it also has military aspects to this deal between Iran and China. Russia and Iran also have a pact together. And we're seeing this Asian alliance, right? It's been confirmed that now the soldiers from the Democratic People's Republic of Korea were fighting in Kursk. So we're seeing a alliance forming in this region. And we know that most likely if there's an attack on Iran, it will not be limited to Iran solely, simply due to the nature of these military alliances being formed. So I think it would be extremely misguided, and I think the United States are most likely aware of this, that an attack on Iran would be devastating for the entire world and would spark something much larger in the region.
Absolutely. So maybe we should, before we go to the Q&A, just say a few words about the Canadian election. Our comrades in Canada are going to the polls today. What time is it now? It's noon. I guess the polls have opened in Canada. And there is no prospect, according to the polls, of anybody other than the Liberals, led by Mark Carney, or Pierre Poilievre, whom I fondly refer to as the yapping Zionist Chihuahua. There he is up on the screen, folks. The Chihuahua himself in all of his splendor and glory. Mercifully, he's losing by a few points in the polls. It looks like Carney is going to win, which seems almost miraculous given how terribly the Liberals were doing in the polls back in December when Trudeau had not yet left office. And I just want to say, to Canadians out there who haven't yet voted, please, whatever you do, man, don't vote for the lesser of two evils, okay? Just vote for anybody, for God's sake, other than the yapping Zionist Chihuahua and Mark Carney, the Goldman Sachs banker who has appointed a rabid dog Zionist, Marco Mendocino, to be his chief of staff. These two warmongers don't give a damn about you and me. They don't care about human rights. They don't care about international law, just basic human decency. Democracy means nothing to these people. If we keep voting for the lesser of two evils, we will always be ruled by an evil. I mean, geez, if you have to vote for the Rhinoceros Party, man, there's got to be somebody out there you're willing to vote for other than the Liberals and the Conservatives. And if you don't want to vote for anybody, then spoil your ballot. Rami had a really good idea, but I'm not going to repeat it on here because I ended up mixing our program. But he had a really good idea about what he should write on his ballot. Anyways,
he was not a Canadian citizen.
Yes, he was going to write in the name of somebody who comes from a resistance movement, shall we say? And recently passed away. So, in any case. That's all I have to say about the Canadian election, and tomorrow
Dimitri.
I'll be on, just to finish out, sorry, Rami, I'll be on the Global Economy Hour with our our dear friend, Professor Radhika Desai, to talk about the outcome of this pathetic electoral contest. That's all I have to say.
Dimitri, I just because I'm in China and I've been getting lots of Chinese content on my feeds lately, and I saw a video about how in China you can't change parties, but you could change policy, and in the West you can change parties, but you can't change policies. So you said, you're talking about Carnier, Poilievre, to a certain extent, even Jagmeet Singh. There's truly nothing much you can expect in terms of change of policies regarding Palestine, regarding privatization, regarding austerity, regarding public spending, regarding our social well-being. I'm not going to vote because, well, first of all, I don't expect anything to change. And second of all, I'm not going to vote for anyone who's complicit in genocide. That would make me complicit in genocide myself. And Dimitri, just before we go into Q&A, please start posting your questions. But I want to give a special shout out to a friend of mine called Mohammed Khatib, who's part of Samidoun in Belgium. I believe he's the European coordinator. He was brutally arrested by the police in Brussels after leaving a protest. He was walking on his own. The police jumped him, put him in detention for over 24 hours. He's been violated by the state multiple times. Dimitri, I feel like every single live stream we do, we have to give some level of respect to people getting persecuted by the state. It's truly outraging what we're seeing in our networks, people being attacked. This week it's Mohammed Khatib. Previously it was Yves Engler. We had some friends of ours that were in Beirut with us, Dimitri. So it's
Just to go back to what you said, thank you for that shout out. Our thoughts and our solidarity with Mohammed. What you said about Canada, the permissible range of political discourse in this country is this thin, folks.
Negligible.
Suffocating. You got to cram your thoughts and your political comment into this little tiny space. And if you step outside, you're vilified as an extremist or a radical. And the weird ass thing is that all the people crammed in that space are the extremists. They're the extremists. The moderates are out here, outside of the range of permissible political discourse, just talking common sense and basic human decency. That's the reality of Canadian politics. And I would rather see, somebody not vote at all than vote for one of those two fraudsters. Because at the end of the day, when you vote, right, they'll add up the votes. At the end, they're going to say, oh, we got, 65% turnout or whatever, and that means we have a democratic mandate. But what would happen if, much less than the majority of the population voted? How could they say they had a democratic mandate? At least we could then throw it back in their face that you don't have any kind of a mandate at all. So I'm not saying don't vote at all, but if you're going to vote, I can understand why you would exercise Rami's choice. I can completely understand that given the options on the table. But, just please don't vote for the Yabin Zionist Chihuahua or the Goldman Sachs banker.